Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hey, Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. It's from Canto 3, which is entitled The Status Quo, Chapter 1, Questions by Vidura. And this morning we're doing text 3 and 4. So without further ado, we'll start the class. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Jaya Om Vishnu Pad Paramhansa Parivajikacharya Astottara Sati Sishimaris Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shira Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalila Vishnu Om Vishnu Pad Paramhansa Parivajikacharya Astottara Sati Sishimaris Divine Grace Shira Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाय नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जाय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जाय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ स्वामी कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जाय श्री वृंदावन धाम की जाय मथुरा धाम की जाय नवद्वीप धाम की जाय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जाय जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जाय गंगामाई की जाय जमुना माई की जाय तुलसी देवी की जाय भक्ति देवी की जाय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जाय सामवेद भक्त विंद की जाय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Dinamini Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Siddhatmani Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Dinamini Narayana Namaskritya Narun Chevam Naruttamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Vajirayat Nashtapayesu Abhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sivaya Bhagavati Uttamastuke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1. We're doing text 3 and 4. So, I will read through text 3 first, and then when we get to text 4, you can actually take part, those of you that would like to chant the text. Rajo Vacha Kutakshatu Bhagavata Maitrayena Sasangama Kadava Saha Samvada Etadvanayana Prabhu. Word for word by Srila Prabhupada. Rajo Vacha, the king said, Kutra, wherein? Shatu, with Vidura. Bhagavata, and with his grace. Maitrayena, with Maitreya. Asa, there was. Sangama, meeting. Kada, when. Va, also. Saha, with. Samvada, discussion. Etat, this. Varnaya, describe. Na, unto me. Prabhu, O my Lord. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The king asked Shukadeva Goswami, where and when did the meeting and discussion take place between Saint Vidura and His Grace Maitreya Muni? Kindly oblige, my Lord, and describe this to us. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Exactly as Shaunaka Rishi inquired of Sutta Goswami, and Sutta Goswami replied, so Srila Shukadeva Goswami replied to King Parikshit's inquiries. The king was very anxious to understand the meaningful discussion that took place between the two great souls. Text 4. Nahya parto dayastasya viduya shamalatmana tasmin variyasi prashna sadhu vapo sadhu vado bimhita nahya pato dayastasya vidurasya malatmana. Tasmin variyasi prashna sadhu vado pabrimhita nahya pato dayastasya vidurasya malatmana. Tasmin variyasi prashna sadhu vado pabrimhita. Hare Krishna. Please chant.
Nahi. Go ahead, Prabhu. Okay. Nahi alparthodayastasya vidurasya malatmanah tasmin variyasi prashnaha sadhu vadopbrahmita. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
नयल्पर्थोदयस्तस्य विदुरास्य मलात्मना तस्मिन् वरीयसि प्रश्न साधुवादो बृहंहित.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Yalparthodayastasya vidurasya malatmana tasmin variyasi prashna sadhu vadopabrimita. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
नायल्पर्तोदयस्तस्य विदुरस्य मलात्मना तस्मिन् वरीयसे प्रश्न साधुवादोपबृंहिता. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? All right, we do word for word. Nah, never. He, certainly. Alpata, small, unimportant purpose. Udaya, raised. Tasya, is. Vidurasya, of Vidura. Malatmana, of the saintly man. Tasmin, in that. Variyasi, highly purposeful. Prashna, question. Sadhuvada, things approved by saints and sages. Upabrimhita, full with. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to his base Rishi Maitreya must have been very purposeful on the highest level and approved by learned circles. Report by Srila Prabhupada. Questions and answers among different classes of men have different value. Inquiries by mercantile men in a business exchange cannot be expected to be highly purposeful in spiritual values. Questions and answers by different classes of men can be guessed by the caliber of the persons concerned. In Bhagavad Gita, the discussion was between Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the Supreme Person and the Supreme Devotee, respectively. The Lord admitted Arjuna to be his devotee and friend, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 3, and therefore, any sane man can guess that the discussion was on the topic of the Bhakti Yoga system. Actually, the whole Bhagavad Gita is based on the principle of Bhakti Yoga. There is a difference between karma and karma yoga. Karma is a regulated action for the enjoyment of the fruit by the performer, but karma yoga is action performed by the devotee for the satisfaction of the Lord. Karma yoga is based on bhakti or pleasing the Lord, whereas karma is based on pleasing the senses of the performer himself. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, one is advised to approach a bona fide spiritual master when one is actually inclined to question from an elevated level of spiritual understanding. A common man who has no interest in spiritual values has no need to approach a spiritual master just as a matter of following fashion. As a student, Maharaj Pariksit was serious about learning the science of God, and Shukadeva Goswami was a bona fide spiritual master in the transcendental science. Both of them knew that the topics discussed by Vidura and Rishi Maitreya were elevated, and thus Maharaj Pariksit was very interested in learning from the bona fide spiritual master. Om Gyanati Virandasya Gyana Gyana Shalakaya Chakshu Umritam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manokistam Stapitam Dena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravan Pracharini Nirveshesha Sunyavadi Pasyatiyari Shitarini Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prem Patayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Bhati Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sivasari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay. So the English translation for text 3 is, the king asked Shukadeva Goswami, where and when did the meeting and discussion take place between Saint Vidura and His Grace Maitreya Muni? Kindly oblige, my lord, and describe this to us. text 4 English translation. Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to His Grace Rishi Maitreya must have been very purposeful, on the highest level, and approved by learned circles. Hare Krishna. So, Srimad Bhagavatam is indicating here the meeting between Vidura and Maitreya Muni. And Maharaj Pariksit wants to know more about that meeting, where it took place and when it took place. So all of that was asked. Maharaj Pariksit wanted to know more about it. So that's this text 3 explaining that. Now, the first thing that we learn from this is, because of the caliber of the devotees of the Lord that Maharaj Pariksit was asking Shukadeva Goswami about, Maharaj Pariksit and Shukadeva Goswami both knew that Vidura and Maitreya Muni would talk not about mundane things, but about things connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Bhakti Yoga, which is pretty much the same. The Lord is absolute, so service to the Lord, things about the Lord is actually the Lord also. We can't be like that. We can have a name, we have names, but the Lord's name, Krishna, is also Krishna. The Lord's effulgence is Krishna. The Lord's paraphernalia is Krishna. Like that. And if that boggles our mind, well, a lot of things will boggle our mind, because we are in a very limited situation in the material world. Much of what the soul can do, we cannot do right now. Even the soul that's us is put on hold. So many things that we have Bhagavatamrita describes that is possible for the soul to do, we can't do right now because of our incarcerated situation in the material world. So clearly, it's best to connect with Krishna consciousness, and hopefully it's not so difficult for devotees to come to that conclusion that Krishna consciousness is the best thing to do in this world. If you look at how the world is going to, as they say in America, is going to hell in a handbasket, all the wrong things that could be done between nations is now international now. It's being done. Man's inhumanity to man is obvious, is out there. Things that are being done in the name of some religion. So Krishna already warned us, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Bhaja. Abandon all varieties of religion, just surrender to me. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If you surrender to Him, meaning that everything that is described to us as orders by the spiritual master, and the things that Krishna himself, our spiritual master, spoke to Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, if we do that, that is our surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the meaning of surrender. When you surrender, it's like a child that doesn't know what to do in a situation. And the first thing they think about, where's my mommy? Where's my daddy? You see any one of them, the child just runs right to them. And of course, the parent will console the child. And then the child feels, I'm safe. So that is the kind of surrender that we need to connect to Krishna with, like a child going to the parent. And rightly so, because Krishna is the supreme. What can he not do? When a child runs to the parent, the child, whether the parent knows, whether the child really knows the truth about the parent or not, the child's point is, I have come to mommy, I've come to daddy, therefore all my problems will be solved. I could just trust them and give myself to my mommy or daddy. Mm? And everything will be fine. Mm? Sometimes the mother or the father doesn't really do anything but just put the child in the lap and rub the child's body a little bit just to indicate that I'm here for you. And that's all that's necessary. The child has total confidence in the parent. This is the way in which we need to surrender to the Lord. And if we see the things that are happening in Kali Yuga, wars that are going on now, and wars that are being planned, you could just hear the war drums because one nation is trying to say something negative about another nation. Somebody else is saying that I want this particular land. It's for me. Therefore, I'm, you know, I want to take it and make it part of my domain. The fact of the matter is that no leader has any domain because nobody owns the planet but Krishna. Lord Vishnu helped to come to being. It's from Mahavishnu, then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, then Lord Brahma. Hmm? Yet there are puny little leaders here who say, oh, I control everything. Puny because what is the size of a person compared to even the size of the earth? How little we are. Hmm? If you go on an airplane 30,000 feet, 5 miles up in the air, and you look down, you can't even see on a clear day where there are no clouds. There will be people walking the face of the earth, but from the airplane, we can't even see them. Hmm? So, what is the view of the demigods who are in the heavenly planets when they look at this small planet here? That's how little we are. Srila Prabhupada one time described this is the point where we need to be aware of as far as humility goes. We'll come to this point here about this question from from Maharaj Pariksit. But Srila Prabhupada made one point to help one of his disciples, who was one of the leaders too at that time, GBC. Mm-hmm. And there is this spiritual world. There's a whole creation of spiritual and material. Huge, huge, huge planets in the spiritual world. And the material universes are like 1/1,000,000th of one of those planets in the spiritual world. And we are in one of the smallest universes. And the universe has so many planets, planetary systems. Planetary systems, each planetary system level has so many planets. And we are in one small planet. And the devotee is in one continent. And in that continent, there's one country. And in that one country, there's a city. And in that one city, there's a neighborhood. And in the neighborhood, there's one house. And this one devotee is in that house, but he thinks that he controls everything. This Prabhupada described it like that. He thinks he controls everything. So that's for us to learn also. In front of the Lord gives us mercy, but we are very tiny, atomic in front of the Lord. The Lord's mercy is all we're made of. If we understand it that way, then life becomes quite manageable. It doesn't become easy, but it becomes more manageable. And if we don't understand it that way, then as my Guru Maharaj describes it, Bhakti Maharaj, it becomes business as usual, because then you or me or I, in that matter, if I think like that, want to use my own free choice to make decisions. And as you well know, we are in a situation where we can be right, we can be wrong. And so many things can happen, and we can be quite vulnerable. So our situation demands humility. Maharaj Pariksit definitely humbled himself in front of Shukadeva Goswami, asking the questions because he knew that starting off like that, asking about Vidura and Maitreya Muni, there will be wonderful questions about Krishna, because that's what they will discuss. And that's why he asked that particular question. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada also says Shaunaka Rishi, who was the leader of the rishis or the munis, 80,000 of them that had assembled to hear. I mean, well, not to hear is one part, but they also were performing sacrifice for the benefit of mankind. So they were that good at heart, good-hearted rishis. But Sutta Goswami was present when the Bhagavatam was being spoken on the side of the Ganga to Maharaj Pariksit. Therefore, Shaunaka Rishi, who was the head of the rishis, inquired, asked Sutta Goswami to describe what he had heard about Srimad Bhagavatam. And Sutta Goswami replied, and they heard about the Bhagavatam. So Srila Sukadeva Goswami also replied to Maharaj Parikshit's inquiries. So the inquiries are very important. The inquiries that save our lives are the inquiries about Krishna. And the inquiries that save our lives are not only to be asked to get answers, but we're supposed to live by them also. It's supposed to open our eyes about what is what. And then we're also supposed to live by them. So every answer that we get for a question, that's a spiritual question, is an important aspect, which is an eye-opener for our lives. We should never hear just to get to know about it, but it's always a situation where we should pray, even if we don't know how to apply it, pray to Srila Prabhupada or your spiritual master, if you're initiated, for help, for the intelligence that we have to guide us in how to practically apply what we learn. Life is practicality, not just theory. So the scriptures may give theory and answer the questions, but the practical aspect of it is very important. So by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and my Guru Maharaj, we will talk about some parts of Bhagavad Gita a little later, with a view to looking at each aspect and how we can practically apply it. So that will come later, as time permits. So Vidura was a great devotee of the Lord. Vidura was actually Yamaraj that had come here because he really wanted to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, a pastime was arranged for him to be able to come to the earth at the time that Krishna was also here. And now a situation has happened. Actually, we can explain a little bit of it because I did listen to the lecture by Ananda Rupa Mataji yesterday, so I don't really want to repeat some of the things that he did talk about. But she described wonderfully about this meeting between Vidura and Maitreya. He said at first, which is also in the Shastra, that after Vidura left, first of all, why did he leave the palace in Hastinapur? The king, Dhritarashtra at the time, was taking advice from Vidura. And so, yes, he asked, and they were brothers too. Dhritarashtra was older, and he was the king. And Vidura was a minister, younger minister, same father. So when Dhritarashtra inquired, and Vidura is very direct. That's one thing we also need to learn. He doesn't do, even though he was in a situation where he could have played politics, because after all, it's a kingdom, there's a king and a prime minister, and what do we know about them? They do politics this age. But Vidura was Dharmaraj, Dharma, being direct. So he responded to all his questions to the Dhritarashtra directly. He just gave instructions right to the point. You have the Pandavas being treated badly. They have Indraprasth. You divided the kingdom and gave Indraprasth to the Pandavas they have been cheated in dice. They have been sent away. Maharaj Yudhishthira doesn't like to make enemies. So all of this suffering of being gone for 12 years, in the 13th year, living incognito, he accepted all of that and went with his younger brothers. Now they've lived through this suffering and humiliating position. They've come back, give them their land in the past, which you yourself divided the kingdom and gave to them, so that your son could have the other half after you left your body. Your son Duryodhana could have the other half. Hmm? The Pandavas have come back, so give it to them. Hmm? And then Vidura also told him, you are maintaining Duryodhana, who is a personification of offenses. Hmm? He is envious of Lord Krishna, but you are maintaining him. Therefore, you yourself are losing your auspicious qualities. His brother just told him directly. Hmm? Relieve yourself of this ill fortune, and that will do good to the whole family of the Kauravas. So Vidura was direct. But because Duryodhana heard it, then he got upset and he insulted. Hmm? He insulted Vidura. And Vidura, he just told him, who asked him to come here? This son of a kept mistress. He's so crooked. He Duryodhana is telling Vidura that Vidura is crooked. Yet who is the real crook? Hmm? It's funny how sometimes people are certain ways, then they think that that bad habit is actually in someone else, but they don't see their own faults. Hmm? It takes humility to come out of that kind of thinking. So, Duryodhana insulted Vidura, and Vidura, when Vidura said, no, when Duryodhana said, toss him out of the palace, then that was a sign to Vidura to leave. Vidura left on his own. But he took advantage of that situation, and rather than go someplace else and get into some sense gratification, Vidura went to pilgrimage places. And it's through his travel that first he met Uddhava, and I know that was described to you yesterday, in the Vrindavan area, and then further, as Uddhava advised him that Maitreya had also heard from Sri Krishna directly, and so Vidura, should go see Maitreya, who wasn't far away, and you were told it was a Hadwa. So Vidura continued, met Maitreya, and a good bit of a third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So much knowledge comes from Maitreya to Vidura for our benefit too, because it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So traveling to pilgrimage places, the first thing. What is the real thing to be done in these places? In Bhagavatam 10 to 10, chapter 84, text 13, Tirupapad quotes this quite a bit. Yashatma buddhi kunape tridatuke, swadi kalata dishiboma ichchedi, yacheta buddhi salile nakahichit, jnaneshu abigeshu sa eva gokara. The part of it that's important to us, jnaneshu abigeshu. Yacheta buddhi, theater is pilgrimage places. You don't go to the pilgrimage places so you see a sacred river, just go bathe in it and say, I'm finished. I'm finished with my real aim for coming to this place. Salile is water. Yateta Buddhi Salile Nakahiti, just go into there and just, yes, this is the Jamuna, this is the Ganga. I've bathed in it. I know my sins are washed away. I'm okay now. I can go home or maybe buy a few things in the stores, souvenirs as gifts, and then go home. And that's all. But Janeshu Abigeshu, you need to hear about the pilgrimage place itself from the residents who will tell you the spiritual significance. That's what we need. That's what makes the sense, makes the whole travel to the pilgrimage place significant. You got to hear from those who are residents there. You approach and ask, Srila Prabhupada, when he was younger, when he was in Scottish Churches College, in the vacation time, he traveled. He wanted to go to Jagannath Puri so bad. So he got a chance to go. And there are some people that met him and tried to say, oh, I can do this for you. I can do this for you. All they want is money. But there's an older guy that approached Srila Prabhupada, Abhay Babu at that time, and asked him a little bit about himself. He could see that Abhay had just traveled. He wasn't one of those that was there. And a lot of people do come over to Jagannath Puri as tourists, as visitors. At first, Srila Prabhupada did not want to talk to the man. But then the man turned and says, do you think I came to you to ask for your money like other people do? And that's when Srila Prabhupada realized this guy was genuine. So he apologized and sat and began to listen to about Lord Jagannath's pastimes in Jagannath Puri. So hearing the spiritual events of the place of pilgrimage, and then with the place we can see, we're already there, and then we hear about that. It gives a special connection to that place. So much so that even after we've left and come back, the memories of that place still stay in the mind. The mind's eye just has that. Not only the place itself and the spiritual significance, but what we've heard about the place also from those who were there. So it is very important, wherever we go, that we hear some pastime or some spiritual significance from those who live in that particular place. And there are those who are there. It's not hard to find at all. Because that way we establish a special bond with the place, and it always remains in our mind's eye like that. So that's what's important. And Vidu definitely showed it by going to Maitreya Muni on the request of Uddhava. Uddhava could have talked to him, but Uddhava deferred to Maitreya Muni for two reasons. One, Krishna had already taught Maitreya Muni. And second, Maitreya Muni was older, and Uddhava, was younger than Vidura. So he asked him, Uddhava asked Vidura to go to Maitreya Muni. And that's why the now description about where they were and many points were brought up by Maitreya Muni in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we'll get to those. Now, there was instruction also given by Sri Krishna to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. And in Bhagavad Gita chapter 16, texts, the first text, second, and the third text, there are very important points about a devotee's viewpoint and a devotee's character that needs to be molded together, that Krishna summed up into keywords. But each word has its own practical application. So with the kind of episode I was talking about earlier, we will look at some of them. The three texts, I don't know whether we'll be able to go through all the different aspects of life in all three texts, but whatever we're able to, that is the Lord's mercy. The Blessed Lord said, fearlessness. First thing we talked about, fearlessness. So now let's look at the practical awareness of fearlessness. Fearlessness cannot be applied, but there's an awareness that deals with the mind. And of course, our emotions also. So of course, fear is there. Even ghosts sometimes, in some people, they instill fear, and they love to make people be scared. When a person is fearless of a ghost, that's the end of the ghost. They can't really do much to the person. But that aside, fearlessness, how does that come about? The example we gave about the little child going to the father or mother, we can say that when a little child is looking for the father and mother, at that time, they're not sure that they can handle things themselves. Therefore, they are going to their parents. We can also say that they may have some level of fear that has impelled them to go look for their parents. But once they find their parents and they are basking in the protection of their parents, they're sure that no matter what happens, the parents can do a much better job protecting them than they themselves can. There's every reason for the child to be fearless. So that's one way of looking at fearlessness. When we surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, fearlessness follows. It follows. So it comes this way. Practically, the intelligence gets sharpened, and guidance from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Paramatma is very much done for us. We get a lot of guidance. Some may know about this little voice, the little voice. Yes, there's a little voice, but actually, when you surrender to the Supreme Lord, the little voice does not become little anymore. It gets bigger. You hear it more. You hear it more emphatically. And literally, it gets to a point where you can mentally ask, what should I do? And the results come just like that. But it is from taking Krishna consciousness seriously. When we take that seriously, then this fearlessness comes. The guidance is so good, and there's no mistake ever. There is no mistake in the guidance that you get in terms of do this, don't do this. Or if a place is dangerous, you will get a sign, okay. And then you just follow the sign. If you don't, though, then you're going to meet something sometimes not necessarily dangerous, but inconvenient. That can happen also. This is very practical. It's just a question of trying it. Hear the voice. Krishna consciousness increases that little voice. You don't get a little voice anymore. It is very, very emphatic. And if you follow it, then things go well. No need to be fearful. This is how fearlessness is controlled. The Supreme Lord talked about purification of one's existence as the next point. Purification of one's existence is just being a good devotee in all aspects. Hearing, which is already what you're doing, coming on to hear, I'm speaking, but I'm also hearing because it's through me. My spiritual master is speaking through me. I don't claim anything that comes out of my mouth. I'm just like a medium through which you're hearing. Hearing about what is right, what is what in Krishna consciousness gives us a better mindset, a more mature mindset about Krishna consciousness. And that automatically purifies our lives on condition that we practice what we hear. We keep doing it. And so many little things, even the times that we go to sleep, becomes important. If you're not doing a graveyard shift because of work that you're up in the middle of the night working, then you should go to bed around 10. Definitely, if it's going to be later, it should not be before. It should not be after, sorry. It should not be after 12. The quality of sleep becomes questionable after 12 midnight. To try to go to bed before that time. Srila Prabhupada has talked about the duration of time that we sleep. 6 hours. Some, depending on their body, may stretch to 7 hours, but no more than that. And in one lecture, it says if we sleep a long time, 8 hours, 9 hours, that's waste. He used the word waste. I'm just repeating what he said. Most of the devotees do 6 hours, and some may do 7. But sleeping before 12 is important. The body gets better rest. As a matter of fact, I heard Chandamali Swami talked about those who sleep like 10. By the time it gets to 1 o'clock, the stomach is cleared totally. Even if they had dinner, it's cleared totally. And now the body is in the phase of going after germs and all kinds of things. It starts cleansing by 1 in the morning. That's why it's necessary to sleep at that time, at the very latest, before 12. Cultivation of spiritual knowledge, Sri Krishna was saying. Cultivation of spiritual knowledge is by hearing and by chanting, especially hearing what to and what not to do in Krishna consciousness. If we take those here, no, I'm not going to bring some specific points out because every time you come, you're going to hear something that improves your life. So definitely, all that's talked about is part of spiritual knowledge, the whole culture of spirituality. So hear and take it seriously, apply it in your life. Charity, especially in the ashram that we're in, Grihastha ashram, household ashram. That's most people, married or not, basically. People are thinking in terms of being with partners, therefore, householder ashram, the householder life, is the most prevalent at this point. Why are we talking about householder life? Well, householders are the ones that work. Householders are the ones that earn money. In these 4 ashrams, brahmachari, Panapas is retired, brahmachari is a student, sannyas is totally renounced. So the householder life is the one that particular ashram, those involved in it, those belonging to it, are in a situation to give charity. Why is it important to give charity? First of all, to give charity means we are training ourselves to detach from the material energy. Spiritually, this is what happens. We might think that, oh, I'm giving out of the kindness of my heart. That is true, but that's only part of it. The advantage that a person who is charitable gets is that they don't get attached to material things. Before any charity is given away, it's with that person that is charitable initially. Then that person gives it to someone else or to some institution, preferably for devotees, the temple. If we give charity, it becomes, because the thing that we gave is now gone, we don't have it anymore, and we're okay with the fact that it's gone. Then when it comes time for us to leave the body, we will be okay to leave those things that are in our possession at that time and not mope and carry on about it as to why am I leaving this and I have so much and now I have to leave, death is taken away. Because if you think that way, at the time of death, we're going to come back to the material world, take a body, because that's telling the mind that we want more material things. And therefore we get put in the body to come back into the material world rather than go home to the spiritual world. So charity, while it helps the person who receives it, it also helps the giver because it trains the giver not to get so tight with whatever they have, with possessions, material possessions, giving them away in charity. It also helps like that. Helps for the person to detach. And so when it comes time to leave the body, detachment from the material energy is not so difficult because they've been giving it away anyway to begin with. Next, Krishna talks about self-control. Self-control, for us, we have been helped by the way a devotee lives his life, his or her life. Prashadam, we used to eat all kinds of things. Now we're limited in what we can eat. That's one aspect of self-control. Chanting steadies the mind, so the mind is under control. Hearing and taking the spiritual instructions and living by it automatically takes us from the things that we would do, which is part of Maya. So again, we're able to get ourselves away from Maya because of what we've heard and what we've now decided to imbibe or take as part of our life from Krishna consciousness. That's why listening to the spiritual master or the person who has listened to the spiritual master and repeating what the spiritual master said becomes very important. So for Krishna consciousness, self-control, for the way Srila Prabhupada set up this devotee lifestyle, it's already built in. If you follow what is said that we have to do, then you'll be self-controlled, with only one exception, and that is control of anger. It's there. It's there in the Bhagavad Gita. Lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, and envy. They are those 6 gates that lead to hell. But especially, lust sometimes is not so easily seen, or people try to hide it because they're working on it, trying to be less lusty. But anger comes out. There's an external show, and it tends to make other people, obviously, give them negative feelings, to put it mildly. So anger really ruins devotee relationship. We have to be very careful not to get angry with other devotees. Even if we think that they've done something wrong, the first thing we need to remember, again, this is from what we've been told, there are 4 defects in the human being. One of them is to make mistakes. So we should expect that other devotees will make mistakes, as we should also expect that we will make mistakes too. And if we tell the intelligences, the mind, mistakes are going to come. So when they come, it shouldn't be such a big deal. When the person has been habitually making a mistake, that means they're careless. Yeah, well, then that person needs help. But every now and then something is done. Sometimes even the person was just around when it happened because something was in their possession when that thing got disturbed in some kind of way. We gotta understand that's the first thing to control anger. Mistakes happen. Even in Kami life, the sentence is there. To err is human. Human beings make errors. So immediately talk to the mind and say, all right, so it's happened. It could have happened on me. It happened to someone else. So, all right, let's go into how we can correct whatever that mistake is. That's all that's important. But if we just don't control our anger and then we just lay it out and open up and say all kinds of negative things to the other person, now the other person feels terrible. They might even help correct it. But one thing that's ruined is your relationship. And the spiritual world is all based on relationship. The gopis' relationship with Krishna, the gopas and the cowherd boys' relationship with Krishna, the parents' relationship, it's all, you call it ras, yes, loving relationship, but it's all relationship. So if we ruin ours here, we're done. We're done in terms of the fact that we've just gotten ourselves away from the opportunity to go back to Godhead. Just ask yourself, if I get angry with this person, am I going to go to the spiritual world and get angry with the devotees there? With Alita, with Vishaka, with Raktak, with Sridham, all of those loving souls. This is our practice. So we have to be very, very, very careful when it comes to this self-control. Performance of sacrifice, again, Srila Prabhupada has done it for us. We'll stop there. This last one, I didn't think we'd be able to go through all of them, and it looks like by the Lord's mercy, this first 7 or so, we've been able to go through. Performance of sacrifice. The pujas that are done are already in the lifestyle of devotees. It's already there. All we have to do is follow it. But our biggest sacrifice for Kali Yuga, anybody know? Unmute yourself and say, the sacrifice that we do in Kali Yuga is what?
Sankirtan Yagya.
Sankirtan Yagya. That's absolutely chanting the holy name of the Lord. Chanting the holy name of the Lord. That's the biggest sacrifice. That is the most important sacrifice. It takes us back to Godhead. Therefore, we're saying, take the chanting very seriously, quantity and quality. Pay attention, chanting. The holy name of the Lord will give us love, literally, will awaken love in our hearts. This is how Lord Chaitanya has designed this. The mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, awakens love of Godhead. And that, literally, when it's there, many of these other qualities that we just talked about will happen. It will happen automatically. So take the quality of the chanting seriously. And of course, if you can chant more, so much the better. We were given 16 rounds japa. The Srila Prabhupada added one more word to it, 16 rounds as a minimum. He didn't say get to 16 rounds and stop. If you get to 16 rounds and finish that for the day, you have obeyed Srila Prabhupada, and that's important. You have to obey the spiritual master, and he is a preeminent Shiksha Guru, an instructing Guru for the whole ISKCON. So you've obeyed him. But better yet, if you go past 16 rounds, then you're doing more to open your heart for Krishna, to open the heart to love Krishna. The mantra does that. So these are some of the points that Sri Krishna was listing in, which is put in Bhagavad Gita chapter 16. Hopefully we can live by that. But we will stop here. Remember, Krishna consciousness is all about practical application of what we hear. That's called Vigyan, wisdom and application of the wisdom from the Shastra, the scriptures. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So thank you for coming on this morning. And we all grow from what we hear, myself included. This is for my own purification also, as it is for you also. This is the time to unmute yourself if you have questions. If you have comments that you want to make, you certainly can unmute yourself and comment then. Okay, so there is one by Dear Krishna Prabhu on in the text, so I'll read that. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So this is just appreciation. Thank you for the beautiful points in the class. That is all going to Guru and Guranga. It's also another point. We always have to understand when we talk about Krishna consciousness to each other, or meeting a group like the way this setup is, we don't preach on our own. If we preach with the understanding that is my Guru Maharaj is telling me, and I'm just basically putting it out as I hear it from my Guru Maharaj, as it gets put in my mind or my heart, then that is the right consciousness. And we'll be able to preach very nicely like that. Hare Krishna. Dear Krishna, I see you raise your hand. Accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All good to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhu, again for the beautiful class.
Krishna's mercy, Guru's mercy. Okay.
One question about, and you were mentioning about like how we all make mistakes. So that is one thing, that as human, everyone makes mistake. Now the second part is how to make sure we can realize, because most of our life just goes by without even realizing we are making mistakes. And making mistake is one thing, and making the similar mistakes again and again is a different thing. So how to deal with that practical scenario, bro?
You're talking about sometimes we don't even know that we made a mistake. Is that the part that you wanted me to comment on?
Yeah, that is first part. And second part, how to not make this, not taking it as an excuse that, okay, as human we make mistakes, but keep making the same mistakes again and again.
Okay. All right. So let's do the second one first. Repeating mistakes that are made. That definitely, if we're really genuine, We're talking about genuine devotee and the person who is not being genuine. If we are really genuine, then repeated mistakes should really concern us. Sometimes the repeated mistakes happen because there is some sort of addiction to some part of our lives that is causing us to make those mistakes. And because of the addiction, and addiction is not easy to beat at all, then the mistakes is happening over and over and over again. Sometimes it's regulated principle. You're supposed to live a certain way, but because of addictions, we're not. When things are out of our control due to addiction, for example, the one thing that we can do is pray to Guru and Gauranga. Whatever is out of our control is never out of the control of Krishna. Nothing is out of the control of Krishna. But we say we pray to Guru because that is a chain of command. Krishna has given us Guru. He says, Tad Vidi Panipatena Paripashnena Sevaya. He says, approach spiritual master. Krishna says, approach spiritual master and inquire submissively and also render service. So we cannot leave Guru out of this because Krishna says approach Guru. That's why we go to Guru with the prayer. And Lord Gauranga, and I deliberately did not mention Krishna, but mentioned Krishna Chaitanya, Lord Gauranga, because that is the most merciful form of a Supreme Personality of Godhead. No Mahavaranyaya. Maranyaya Avatar. As Srila Prabhupada describes him. Krishna came to show us how to be a devotee. Came in the mood of Srimati Radharani, the mother of devotion. And we are devotees, trying to be better devotees. Therefore, if we need any help for something that we keep making, as we said, the mistakes that's repeated, not intended to be repeated, but because of addiction, we're not able to get away from it. You, again, Krishna says, approach spiritual master, so you start with Guru. You initiated, pray to your spiritual master. You're not initiated, pray to Srila Prabhupada. Then Lord Gauranga. Krishna as a devotee. So if you pray that way, then the help will come. One way or the other, Krishna says this person is genuinely asking me to be better so that this mistake you keep making, they won't make it anymore. Krishna will put us in a situation where we'll get over that mistake. It is actually possible to get over that mistake. And my mind is not working so well. It's ridiculous that, what's the first question again? I took the second one and I spent so much time on it, I don't remember the first question.
Sure, Prabhu. The first part was how to even realize we are making mistakes. And also we are making repetitive mistakes. Most of our time, life just goes by without realizing.
Yeah, the mistakes, yeah, the one that we don't realize. Well, the point is, we don't realize the mistake. So we'll make the mistake maybe more than once, only because he hasn't hit us that it is a mistake. We don't know. And things do happen like that. The way around that devotees, especially devotees who are quite mature and they have been around, they do this. Whenever they have to say something to another devotee or to a group of devotees, they put out the general statement, if I have offended any one of you, I humbly beg for forgiveness for it. If I have offended any of you, please forgive me. Because that statement has to, obviously, the way it is put, it comes from somebody who doesn't even know that they made any mistakes yet. They don't know. But it may well have happened. And for mistakes, what devotee asks for is forgiveness. And then, of course, they serve the person too that they made mistakes too. That's the standard way to do things. If you know you made a mistake or you've offended somebody, you ask for forgiveness and you also serve that person. You have to do both. But for a person that doesn't even know, it's likely that the mistake has been made it's likely that another devotee has noted that mistake, but they didn't tell you anything about it, so you don't know. So you put it out like that, general statement. If there's anyone that I offended, please forgive me. Like that. And that way people know that your intention is good. And if there is someone who really you did offended, you didn't know, that person is likely to forgive you because you put it out like that. Very good points. Questions.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Okay.
I think Shane Prabhu has a comment, I think.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Please go on, Shane.
I think he posted in the chat.
All right, let's look at it. Okay. All right. So Shane Prabhu is saying, Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Glory to the Prabhupada. Thank you for the wonderful class. I really like the concept of coming to Krishna like a child runs to their parent. Yeah. Very important. Very important, not from me. This is a statement that came from Bhakti Maharaj. Surrender. As a matter of fact, let me tell you the full story about how he defines surrender. This is my Guru Maharaj. What surrender is not and what surrender is. You have actually heard the example of what surrender, what it is. But there's another form of surrender. And that is like, he gave an example in a war situation. You have two groups, battalion, whatever, division, and they're shooting at each other. And one group is being more successful at fighting the other. It gets to a point what the other side feels that, where the other side feels that we cannot, it is too much barrage of, ammunition coming at us. So we're going to stop. And the way to stop is to give up, surrender by waving the white flag. And that tells the other side that stop shooting and stop coming after us. We may take prisoners of war, but at least you're not going to kill us. Which means the side that waved the flag has surrendered to the other side. It is surrender, but that's not the surrender in Krishna consciousness. It's not Krishna beating us up that we are saying, oh, Krishna, we can't fight you anymore, therefore we surrender to you. No, the surrender is what we talked about, that the child knows that the protection will come from the Supreme Lord or the parent, therefore they go to the parent, like that. And Krishna is the Supreme Parent. Hare Krishna. Thank you for bringing it. The comment on, so this is all glories to Guru Gauranga. Hare Krishna. And thank you, dear Krishna, for pointing out to me that there's a chat point here by Shane. Any other questions? If not, then thank you all for coming. We all learned. I learned too. For everything that's talked about, and your questions and your comments are wonderful. Have a wonderful day and the rest of the week. Vancha kalpatarubhishcha kripa sundivya evacha patitanam pavanevyu vaishnavevyu namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you all. Hare Krishna. Jai.